The vast emptiness of space had never felt so crowded. As humanity took its first tentative steps beyond the solar system, they found themselves thrust into a complex web of alien civilizations and interstellar politics. At the center of it all stood the Galactic Council, a body that had governed the known universe for millennia. Earth's first contact came on a quiet Tuesday morning. The skies above every major city on the planet suddenly filled with sleek, silver ships. Panic gripped the world for a few tense hours before the aliens made their peaceful intentions clear. They were the Zoraks, one of the founding races of the Galactic Council, and they had come to welcome humanity to the cosmic community. In the years that followed, Earth underwent rapid changes. New technologies flooded in, curing diseases, solving energy crises, and allowing humans to travel farther into space than ever before. It seemed like a golden age had dawned, but not everything was as rosy as it appeared on the surface. Jake Morrison, a young diplomat assigned to the human embassy on the Galactic Council's homeworld, Centauri Prime, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The aliens smiled and spoke of unity, but their eyes held secrets. "Welcome, Ambassador Morrison." A tall, ethereal being greeted him as he entered the council chambers for the first time. The alien's name was Ahelthera, and she was the head of the Zorax delegation. "We hope you'll find your stay here enlightening." Jake nodded politely, but a chill ran down his spine. There was something in Ahelthera's tone that set him on edge. As the days turned into weeks, Jake's unease grew. He noticed how other younger races were treated, with a mix of condescension and barely hidden disdain. Humanity, it seemed, was tolerated only because of their potential usefulness. One evening, as Jake was working late in his office, he overheard a conversation that confirmed his worst fears. "The humans are advancing too quickly," a gravelly voice said. Jake recognized it as belonging to Graktor, the Volcran representative. "They'll upset the balance we've maintained for eons." "Patience, my friend," Ahelthera's melodious voice replied. "We've dealt with upstarts before. Humanity will learn their place, one way or another." Jake's heart raced. He had to warn Earth, but how? All communications were monitored by the Council. As the human presence in the galaxy grew, so did the tensions. Earth colonies sprang up on distant planets, and human-made ships began to rival those of races that had been spacefaring for thousands of years. The Council's mask of friendliness began to slip. Trade restrictions were imposed on human goods. Human ships were frequently stopped and searched without cause. Requests for seats on important committees were denied or indefinitely delayed. Back on Earth, people were starting to question the benefits of their galactic membership. Protests broke out in major cities, with signs reading "Earth First" and "Down with the Council." Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of Earth's fledgling space fleet, stood before the United Earth government, her face grim. "We need to prepare for the worst," she said. "The Council sees us as a threat. It's only a matter of time before they take more drastic action." Some dismissed her warnings as paranoia, but others weren't so sure. In secret, Earth began to build up its defenses and forge alliances with other marginalized races. As the situation grew more tense, a ray of hope appeared. A young race called the Nyx-Ari, only recently discovered on a distant planet, showed incredible potential. Their natural abilities to manipulate energy fields could revolutionize technology throughout the galaxy. Humanity, remembering their own recent history, reached out to the Nyx-Ari in friendship. Together, they began to make incredible scientific advancements. But their success only made the Council more nervous. Emergency sessions were called, voices were raised, and in the shadows, dark plans were set in motion. Jake Morrison, now a senior diplomat, couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was coming. As he looked out at the glittering expanse of Centauri Prime's capital city, he whispered to himself, "Whatever happens, Earth will be ready." Little did he know, the true test of humanity's resolve was just around the corner, and the fate of galaxies hung in the balance. The discovery of the Nyx-Ari changed everything. These beings, with their shimmering, translucent skin and eyes that glowed like distant stars, possessed an innate ability to manipulate energy fields. It was a gift that could revolutionize technology across the galaxy. Dr. Amelia Zhao, Earth's leading xenobiologist, was the first human to make contact with the Nixari. She stood on the alien world, its purple sky streaked with silver clouds, and extended her hand to the Nixari leader. "We come in peace and friendship," Amelia said, her voice trembling with excitement. The Nixari leader, a tall being named Xyle, reached out with a six-fingered hand. As they touched, a spark of energy passed between them, and both gasped. "Your kind has great potential," Xyle said, his voice like wind chimes. "Together, we could reshape the stars themselves." Word of the Nixari spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity, remembering its own recent history of being new to the galactic stage, took the young race under its wing. Together, they began to make incredible scientific leaps. But not everyone was pleased with this new alliance. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council chambers were in an uproar. Representatives from 100 worlds argued and shouted, their voices a cacophony of alien sounds. Xyle, the Zorax leader, raised her hands for silence. "This human Nixari alliance is a threat to the balance we have maintained for millennia," she said, her voice cold. "Action must be taken." Graktur, the Volcrin representative, nodded his massive, armored head. "But what can we do? Open aggression would turn many worlds against us." A sly smile spread across Tylthera's face. "We don't need to be aggressive. We just need to be creative." Back on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen paced in her office at Space Command. Reports were coming in from across human space of strange incidents. Supply ships going missing. Communication relays mysteriously failing. And always, just at the edge of sensor range, unidentified ships that vanished when approached. Sarah's holocom beeped, and Jake Morrison's face appeared. The years of diplomatic service had added lines to his face, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Admiral, we have a problem," Jake said without preamble. "I've intercepted Council communications. They're planning something big, and I think the Nixari are the target." Sarah's face hardened. "We need to warn them." "Can you get a message out?" Jake shook his head. "All official channels are being monitored." "But," he paused, a glint in his eye, "I might have an unofficial way." On the Nixari homeworld, Amelia Zhao worked side by side with Zil and his people. They were on the verge of a breakthrough, a new form of faster-than-light travel that could open up unexplored regions of the galaxy. As Amelia adjusted a piece of equipment, she felt a sudden chill. Looking up, she saw Zil staring at the sky, his body tense. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I sense a disturbance," Xyle said, his voice trembling, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror. Before Amelia could respond, her emergency communicator crackled to life. Jake's voice came through, filled with static and urgency. "Amelia, you need to evacuate now. The Council is coming, and they're not here to talk." As if on cue, the sky lit up with the fire of incoming ships. Massive Galactic Council warships, their hulls gleaming with barely contained energy, descended through the atmosphere. Panic erupted among the Nixari. Amelia grabbed Xyle's arm. "We need to go now." But it was too late. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, carving fiery swaths across the Nixari cities. The air filled with screams and the acrid smell of burning. Amelia watched in horror as the paradise she had come to love was reduced to ash and rubble. Beside her, Xyle fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the psychic pain of his dying people. In orbit, Jake Morrison's small diplomatic vessel shuddered as it fled the Nixari system, carrying with it the only warning humanity would get. As tears streamed down his face, Jake opened a channel to Earth. His voice shook as he spoke the words that would change the course of galactic history. "The Council has gone too far. They're slaughtering the Nixari. This is no longer about politics. This is genocide, and humanity will not stand for it. The message raced across space, carrying with it the spark that would ignite humanity's fury. The galaxy would never be the same again. The news of the Nyx-Eri massacre spread through human space like wildfire. Billions of screens lit up with images of the devastation, the burning cities, the fleeing survivors. Humanity, as one, recoiled in horror and then burned with rage. In the halls of the United Earth Government, emergency sessions were called. Leaders from every nation gathered, their faces grim and determined. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before them, her uniform crisp, her eyes blazing with controlled fury. "The Galactic Council has shown its true colors," she said, her voice ringing through the chamber. "They speak of peace while committing genocide. We will not, stand idly by." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in its history, humanity declared war as a united species. Across Earth and its colonies, factories that once produced civilian goods now churned out warships and weapons. Young men and women flocked to recruitment centers in droves. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was angry. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. They had expected humanity to cower, to fall in line. Instead, they faced a storm of human fury. Vilthera, the Zorax leader, paced in her chambers. "How could we have miscalculated so badly?" she hissed. Graktur, the Volcran representative, watched her with wary eyes. "Perhaps we underestimated their attachment to the Nyx-Eri," he rumbled. "Or perhaps we underestimated humanity itself." Jake Morrison, now acting as humanity's last diplomat on Centauri Prime, strode into the council chambers. The aliens fell silent as he approached, sensing the change in him. Gone was the cautious politician. In his place stood a man of steel and fire. "In the name of Earth and all her colonies," Jake's voice rang out, "I hereby declare that the human race withdraws from the Galactic Council. Your crimes against the Nyx-Eri and your threats against us will not go unanswered." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. As Jake's ship left Centauri Prime, the first shots of the war were already being fired. Human fleets, hastily assembled but burning with righteous anger, clashed with Council forces across the galaxy. On the front lines, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Before her, a holographic display showed a Council fleet approaching. "All hands, battle stations," Elena commanded, her voice steady. "Remember the Nyx-Eri. Remember why we fight." The space around them lit up with weapon fire. Human ships, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that shocked their alien opponents. For every Earth vessel destroyed, 2 Council ships fell. Back on Earth, Dr. Amelia Zhao worked tirelessly in a secret laboratory. With her were the few Nyx-Eri who had escaped the massacre, including Zyle. Their eyes were haunted, but their determination matched that of their human allies. "We're close to a breakthrough," Amelia said, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "If we can harness the Nyx-Eri energy manipulation abilities, we might be able to create a weapon that can end this war quickly." Zil nodded, his luminous eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and hope. "Our people's gift will be our vengeance," he said softly. As battles raged across the stars, a resistance movement grew within Council space. Other young races, inspired by humanity's stand, began to rebel against their ancient oppressors. The Galactic Council found itself fighting on multiple fronts, their once unassailable power beginning to crumble. Admiral Chen received the reports with grim satisfaction. "We're pushing them back," she told the United Earth Government. "But the cost is high." Indeed, for all of humanity's fury and determination, the war extracted a terrible price. Colonies burned. Ships were lost with all hands. The dead numbered in the millions. Yet still, humanity fought on. In the fires of war, the human spirit was tested, tempered, and found unbreakable. As the conflict entered its second year, A message spread throughout human space. A simple phrase, first whispered, then shouted from the rooftops of 100 worlds. Remember the Nixeri. Humanity will prevail. The war that would reshape the galaxy had only just begun, and humanity's fury was far from spent. As the war entered its third year, the initial fury of humanity had cooled into a grim determination. The novelty of space battles had worn off, replaced by the harsh reality of a prolonged conflict. Yet the human spirit remained unbroken. On the UES Vengeance, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at her familiar post on the bridge. Her once pristine uniform now showed signs of wear, much like the ship itself. Scars from past battles marked its hull, each a testament to their struggles and victories. Status report. Elena commanded, her voice carrying the weight of countless difficult decisions. Her first officer, Commander Akira Tanaka, responded promptly. We've detected a Council supply convoy in the Epsilon sector. It's lightly guarded, likely they don't expect us this far into their territory. Elena's eyes gleamed with the possibility of a decisive strike. Prepare for intercept. We'll show them that nowhere in this galaxy is beyond humanity's reach. As the Vengeance and its battle group moved into position, a different kind of battle was being fought light years away. In the secret laboratory on Earth, Dr. Amelia Zhao and Xyle stood before a pulsing orb of energy. Sweat beaded on Amelia's forehead as she manipulated the controls, while Xyle's entire body glowed with effort. Just a little more, Amelia muttered, her voice strained. We're so close to stabilizing it. Suddenly, the orb flashed brightly, and then settled into a steady, mesmerizing rhythm. Amelia and Xyle looked at each other, eyes wide with realization. We did it, Xyle whispered, his voice filled with awe. We've harnessed the power of a star. Amelia nodded, her mind already racing with the implications. This could change everything. We need to inform Admiral Chen immediately. Meanwhile, on Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council was facing its own crisis. Reports of human victories and growing unrest among subjugated races flooded in, painting a picture of an empire on the brink of collapse. Xyle Thera, once confident and imperious, now looked haggard and desperate. How? She demanded of her advisors. How are these humans, these newcomers, defeating our fleets? We've ruled the stars for millennia. Graktur, the Volcran representative, spoke up, his voice rumbling with grudging admiration. Perhaps that is precisely why. Xyle Thera, we've grown complacent, set in our ways. The humans, they adapt, they innovate. Each defeat only seems to make them stronger. As if to punctuate his words, alarms began blaring throughout the council chambers. On the main view screen, a sight that would have been unthinkable just years ago appeared. A human fleet, led by the unmistakable form of the UES Vengeance, dropping out of faster-than-light travel on the outskirts of the Centauri system. Back on the Vengeance, Captain Rodriguez addressed her crew. This is it, people, the heart of the beast. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The battle that followed would be spoken of for generations. Human ships, outnumbered but not outmatched, danced through the Centauri defense grid. Weapons fire lit up space, a deadly light show visible from the planet's surface. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen received the news of the attack with steely resolve. But it was the communication from Dr. Zhao that truly caught her attention. A star in a bottle. Sarah repeated, her mind whirling with the tactical possibilities. And you're certain it can be weaponized? Amelia's holographic form nodded. Yes, Admiral. We call it the Nova Cannon. One shot could disable an entire fleet without the loss of life caused by traditional weapons. Sarah leaned back in her chair, a small smile playing on her lips. Well, Doctor, it seems you might have just handed us the key to ending this war. As the battle raged around Centauri Prime, as scientists on Earth rushed to implement their revolutionary discovery, and as oppressed races throughout the galaxy looked to humanity with growing hope, one thing became clear. The tide of war had turned. The Galactic Council, which had stood unchallenged for millennia, now faced an enemy it couldn't comprehend. A young race, driven not by cold calculation, but by the fire of righteous fury and the unbreakable bonds of unity. As news of the attack on Centauri Prime spread, a new chant began to echo through the halls of human ships and the streets of Earth's cities. For the Nixari, for humanity, for justice. We fight, we adapt, we overcome. The end of the war was on the horizon, but the greatest challenges and the true test of humanity's resolve still lay ahead. The battle for Centauri Prime raged on, a titanic struggle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood firm on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, her ship battered but unbowed. Status report. She barked, eyes fixed on the swirling chaos of the battle displayed before her. Commander Akira Tanaka's voice was tense but steady. Shields at 30%, Captain. We've taken out 3 of their capital ships, but there's still heavy resistance. Elena nodded grimly. They were winning, but at a terrible cost. As she opened her mouth to give the next order, a priority transmission cut through the comm chatter. Admiral Sarah Chen's hologram flickered to life on the bridge. Captain Rodriguez, fall back immediately. We have a new plan. Elena's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but years of discipline kept her from questioning the order. All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. Disengage and fall back to Rally Point Omega. Repeat, fall back now. As the human fleet retreated, leaving a confused Galactic Council armada in its wake, Elena turned to the Admiral's hologram. Ma'am, what's going on? Sarah's face was a mix of excitement and apprehension. We're about to change the course of this war, Captain. Have you ever heard of a Nova Cannon? Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Amelia Zhao and Zil worked feverishly to integrate their revolutionary power source into a weapons platform. The laboratory hummed with barely contained energy, both from the machines and the tension in the air. Are you sure about this, Amelia? Zil asked, his luminous eyes filled with concern. This power, it's beyond anything we've ever worked with. Amelia paused, her hand hovering over a control panel. Unsure that if we don't do this, more people will die. Human, Nixari, and countless other races. She took a deep breath. Sometimes, to end a war, you need to show your enemy that continuing to fight is unthinkable. As they worked, a fleet of transport ships was already racing towards the front lines, carrying the components of what they hoped would be the key to victory. Back on Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council was in disarray. The human attack, followed by their sudden retreat, had left the ancient leaders confused and afraid. Xylthera paced the council chambers, her usually smooth movements now jerky with stress. What are they planning? Why would they retreat when they had the advantage? Graktor, the Volcran representative, rumbled thoughtfully. Perhaps it's another human trick. They've surprised us at every turn so far. Before Xylthera could respond, a junior aide burst into the chamber. Counselors, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the human fleet. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. In the space around Centauri Prime, the human fleet had regrouped. At its center, a massive new ship had appeared, the UES Prometheus. Its hull gleamed with fresh paint, but it was the enormous cannon mounted on its bow that drew all eyes. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Sarah Chen stood with Dr. Zhao and Zil. Is it ready? Sarah asked, her voice hushed. Amelia nodded, her face pale but determined. It's ready, Admiral. One shot from this, and their fleet will be disabled. No loss of life, but they'll be dead in the water. Sarah took a deep breath and keyed the fleet-wide comm. This is Admiral Chen to all ships. What you're about to witness is the culmination of human and Nixari cooperation. This is the power of unity, the power of justice. This is the Nova Cannon. She turned to Amelia and nodded. Fire when ready, Doctor. Amelia's fingers flew over the controls. The ship hummed, the sound building to a crescendo. Then, with a flash that outshone the stars themselves, the Nova Cannon fired. A beam of pure, concentrated energy lanced out from the Prometheus, cutting through space like a blade of light. It struck the Galactic Council fleet, and for a moment, it seemed as if nothing had happened. Then, one by one, the Council ships went dark. Their lights flickered and died. Their engines sputtered and failed. In less than a minute, the entire fleet was floating helplessly in space. On the Prometheus, a cheer went up. On Centauri Prime, panic set in. And across the galaxy, those who had lived under the Council's oppression for so long began to hope. As the human fleet moved in to secure their victory, Admiral Chen turned to Zil. "Your people's sacrifice wasn't in vain," she said softly. "This victory is for the Nixari, and for all those the Council has wronged." Zil nodded, tears in his luminous eyes. "And it's only the beginning," he replied. "The real challenge starts now." The Nova Cannon had won the battle. But as humanity stood on the brink of victory, they faced a new question. How would they win the peace? The silence that followed the Nova Cannon's blast was deafening. The once mighty Galactic Council fleet hung motionless in space, a graveyard of dead ships. On Centauri Prime, panic gave way to a stunned disbelief. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice crackled through the comm systems of every disabled Council ship. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Fleet. Your vessels have been neutralized. Surrender now, and no harm will come to you or your crews." In the Council chambers, Xylthera slumped in her seat, her usual grace abandoned in the face of utter defeat. "How?" she whispered. "How could they have created such a weapon?" Graktor, the Volcran representative, let out a bitter laugh. "We gave them no choice. Xylthera. We pushed them to this point. Now we must face the consequences." As human ships moved in to secure the disabled Council vessels, Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES Vengeance led a team to the surface of Centauri Prime. The streets of the capital were eerily quiet, the alien inhabitants watching with a mix of fear and curiosity as the human soldiers marched past. Elena's team reached the Council chambers without resistance. As the doors slid open, she found herself face to face with the beings who had ordered the massacre of the Nixari, who had pushed humanity into this war. By the authority of the United Earth Government, Elena's voice rang out, clear and strong. "I hereby place the Galactic Council under arrest for crimes against sentient beings." Back on the UES Prometheus, Dr. Amelia Zhao and Zil watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. The Nova Cannon had worked beyond their wildest expectations, but the weight of what they had created hung heavy on their shoulders. "What now?" Zil asked, his luminous eyes fixed on the view of Centauri Prime below. Amelia sighed, running a hand through her disheveled hair. "Now comes the hard part. Winning a war is one thing. Building a lasting peace is another entirely." As news of the Council's fall spread across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. On countless worlds that had suffered under the Council's rule, celebrations erupted. Streets filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, united in their joy at newfound freedom. But not all welcomed the change. On some planets, chaos reigned as local governments collapsed without Council support. Long-suppressed rivalries flared into open conflict. The power vacuum left by the Council's fall threatened to plunge entire sectors into war. Humanity found itself facing a new challenge: how to build a just galactic society from the ashes of the old order. In an emergency session of the United Earth Government, leaders from across human space gathered to chart a path forward. The debate was heated, with opinions ranging from establishing a new human-led council to completely abandoning galactic politics. Admiral Chen took the floor, her uniform still bearing the dust of Centauri Prime. "We didn't fight this war just to become the new tyrants," she said, her voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "We fought for justice, for the right of all beings to live freed from oppression. Now we have a chance to build something truly great, a galactic society based on cooperation and mutual respect." Her words resonated with many, but the path ahead remained unclear. As the debate raged on, An unexpected message arrived from the depths of space. On a distant planet, in a hidden sanctuary, the last free Nyxari had gathered. Led by Zil, they had been watching the war unfold, waiting for the right moment. Now they offered their unique abilities and insights to help forge a new galactic order. As humanity grappled with its new role in the galaxy, other races began to step forward as well. Species that had been marginalized under the Council's rule now offered their own perspectives and strengths. A coalition began to form, diverse beyond imagination, but united in purpose. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. Old hatreds and fears wouldn't disappear overnight. The temptation to abuse their newfound power would always be there. But as Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at the stars that now seemed full of possibility rather than threat, she allowed herself to hope. "We came into this war seeking vengeance," she mused to her crew. "But maybe, just maybe, we'll come out of it having found something greater. A chance to build a future worthy of those we've lost." As the galactic community took its first tentative steps into a new era, one thing was clear: the universe would never be the same again. And humanity, for better or worse, would be at the heart of shaping that new reality. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Galactic Council. The galaxy, once ruled by fear and oppression, was taking its first steps into a new era of cooperation and understanding. At the center of this transformation stood humanity, no longer the newcomers, but the architects of a brighter future. On the newly constructed space station Unity, representatives from 100 different species gathered for the first assembly of the Galactic Cooperative. The station's massive central chamber hummed with a cacophony of languages and the rustle of beings from across the stars. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's representative, stood at the podium. Her hair had grayed at the temples, but her eyes still held the same determination that had led humanity through the war. 5 years ago, we stood on the brink of destruction. She began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Today, we stand united, not just in peace, but in purpose. We have learned that our differences are not a weakness, but our greatest strength. As Sarah spoke, familiar faces watched from the audience. Captain Elena Rodriguez, now Fleet Admiral, sat beside Dr. Amelia Zhao and Zell. The years had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a symbol of what could be achieved when different species worked together. The Nova Cannon, once a weapon of war, has been recommissioned, Sarah continued. Today, it powers this very station, a testament to how even the darkest creations can be turned to light. In the years following the war, humanity had worked tirelessly to help rebuild worlds devastated by the Council's rule. The Nyxari, their numbers small but their spirit unbroken, had been instrumental in this process. Their ability to manipulate energy had helped restore dying ecosystems and power new cities. But it hadn't all been smooth sailing. There had been setbacks, conflicts, and moments when it seemed the fragile peace might shatter. Old rivalries and new fears had threatened to tear apart what they had built. One such crisis had come 2 years earlier, when a group of former Council loyalists had attempted to seize power on a dozen worlds. The fledgling cooperative had faced its first true test. In the end, it was not military might that had saved them, but diplomacy, compassion, and a united front of species standing together against tyranny. The crisis had only served to strengthen the bonds between the member worlds. As Sarah concluded her speech, a murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. But it was what came next that truly marked how far they had come. Thera, the former leader of the Galactic Council, now stripped of her powers, but granted clemency in exchange for her cooperation, approached the podium. The chamber fell silent, old fears and resentments bubbling just beneath the surface. "I stand before you today not as a leader, but as a student," Thera began, her voice heavy with humility. "Humanity, in their righteous fury, could have destroyed us all. Instead, they showed us a better way. They taught us that true strength lies not in dominance, but in unity." As Thera spoke, recounting the lessons learned and pledging her support to the new order, Many in the chamber were moved to tears. It was a powerful symbol of reconciliation, of the possibility of change. The assembly concluded with the signing of the Galactic Charter, a document that enshrined the rights of all sentient beings and laid out the framework for mutual cooperation and support. As the representatives filed out, Admiral Chen found herself standing with Alina, Amelia, and Zyle, looking out at the stars through Unity's vast viewing window. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Alina asked, a note of wonder in her voice. Sarah shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "Never. We came into space seeking vengeance, driven by fury at what had been done to the Nixari. But we found something greater, a galaxy full of wonders, of peoples with hopes and dreams not so different from our own." Zill's luminous eyes shimmered with emotion. "My people's sacrifice was not in vain," he said softly. "From our tragedy, a new hope has blossomed." Amelia nodded, taking Zydel's hand in a gesture of comfort and solidarity. "And we'll make sure it never happens again. Not to anyone." As they stood there, watching distant stars twinkle with possibility, they knew that challenges lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, and there would always be those who sought to disrupt peace. But they also knew that they were no longer alone. Humanity had entered the galactic stage in a fury of vengeance. They would remain there as guardians of a hard-won peace, their alliance with the Nixari and countless other species a beacon of hope in the cosmic night. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The era of the Galactic Cooperative had just begun.